What's up, everybody? It's your boy Sad Nixon, aka the People's Captain, and I'm coming back at you today with another Secret Hitler Tournament video. Now, check out the spreadsheet I got here. What this shows is how the draft went. We're going to talk about how the fantasy draft went in this video. So, if you take a look, I've highlighted in green all the people who were the consensus picks, the people who were picked by the most people out of their round in the fantasy draft. So we can see Pingu, Tom, Newt, Anjanou, etc. These are kind of the consensus picks. I've also highlighted in yellow or gold the people who should be the best picks of their round because they're at the beginning of their round, right? Tom should be, in theory, based on how the captain's drafted, should be the best overall pick. Inoki should be the best overall pick of the third round. These should be the people who are, in theory, the best, but the people didn't always agree. The people did agree sometimes, right? The people said, yeah, Tom is the best pick overall. The people said Pepsi's the best 5th round and letter G is the best 9th round. But they also disagreed sometimes. They said Chopin is actually the best 7th round pick, even though the captains said or implied that he was the worst. Now, based on this kind of comparison between what the people thought and what the captains thought, you can kind of generate a metric for error that the captains made that is implied by each fantasy draft. And what I mean by that is, if a fantasy draft says Source is the, first round pick for me. If a fantasy draft picks Source stock, they're saying that Source should have been the number 1 overall pick, which means that they're saying the captains made 2 errors because they're saying, Artsy passed up on him and Jeb passed up on him. So that's 2 people who messed up on the top overall pick, according to that fantasy draft. In the same way, if a fantasy draft said that Ant was actually their 2nd round pick, that means they're saying the captains made 1 error because Dice missed Ant, picked someone else. So, if you add up all the errors for all the rounds, you can make a metric for how many errors total a fantasy draft implies that the captains made overall. And that's exactly what I did. So let's check it out. Let's just take a little look. And we can sort both ways. First, we're going to sort by least errors. And check it out. Newt is up here with a fantasy draft that implies that the captains made only 14 errors, which is really not that many, considering there are 12 rounds. Relatively few errors. So, yeah, cool stuff right there. I would say Newt had a lot of confidence in what the captains did overall. So did Lamarcus, JNL, Ilya, Ambition, Star Crush, Bezzo. Now, Ilya happened to do really well in the fantasy draft. Pog team did great, got 141 points. Really good stuff by Ilya. And yeah, a lot of confidence in what the captains did. Also, with a lot of confidence in the captains is one of the captains, Dice, with his team called Team Name, which did okay. It is a mediocre team, but yeah, had a lot of confidence in what the captains did. Now let's look at the other way. So, of course, the team that implies the least confidence in the captains is Jimmy's Piss team, which has a, 401 error. And the reason why that is because it's a joke team that has all the last round picks in it, kind of drafted up into the higher rounds. So, yeah, not really to be taken seriously. But, yeah, crazy stuff there. But in terms of the serious teams, Kavi's team, T's team, the T-Spillers, also implied a lot of errors. 64 errors there. That's quite a lot. Yeah. Oh, interesting. They actually drafted Cosme really high. What's with that? Huh. They were the last overall pick. Maybe that contributed to the error a lot. Also with very little confidence in the captains are Moira, Perry, Kayvon, Source Talk, pingu, another captain there. Ray, Angie, Bruno, Shiro. Bruno, Angie, and Moira, all current or former editors, and they all have a very low confidence in the captain's drafting ability. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Now, we can also kind of compare each fantasy draft to the consensus picks, right? If we look at those scores, we can see which drafts agreed the most and the least with the consensus of the people. So, of course, at the very top with the least agreement with the people is Jimmy's draft, which agreed on 0 picks with the consensus. That's to be expected, but also agreeing on 0 picks was Water Bottle. Yeah, so Perry's team, Water Bottle. Yeah, quite a hot take there, I would say. Out of the serious teams, this is basically, numerically speaking, the hottest take team. And it did okay. It was kind of a middle of the road team. 94 points. Could be worse. Could be worse. Also with the hot takes are Paz, Kayvon, Anna, Pingu, Ant, Liliana, Rich, Robbie, and Ashley. Out of these, I think Ashley did the best. Yeah, Ashley did really well. 122 points. I would say that's a good performance. And a hot take. You know, agreeing with only 2 consensus picks. Now let's look at the other way to find the coldest takes. The coldest take is Cocaine's team Segs, which agreed with 9 consensus picks. Now, even though these are the consensus picks, no one actually picked all 13. This team up here is just really all the consensus picks put together. It's a pretty good team. Would have scored 131 points if you picked all 13. But yeah, Cocaine came pretty close with 9. That stands above everyone else. Also agreeing a lot with the consensus, with the people tapped in to the popular opinion. Mochi, Omich, Tenna, Jewel, Starcrush, Ambition, Ilia. Ilia's team did awesome, by the way, 141 points. Really, really cool team. Pog team there. Tyrrox. Yeah, these are people who were really tapped in to the mind of the people. People's cap. So, you might also be wondering at this point, what team would be the optimal team? How could you get the maximum score within the legal confines of the format? And I figured it out. It's this team right here. This team right here. So it's Pingu, Jimmy, Tyrrox, nvass, Bezzo, Jamers, C Factor, Ollie, FacismSux, Ilia, Hobo, BlackGrass, and Stevedog. And you'll notice, if you remember how the draft went, we got a few people drafted higher than their actual draft was. A few people drafted up. And that's because there were some rounds where no one in that round did very well, but people in the rounds below did do very well. And yeah, a lot of interesting stuff there. A lot of really high scoring, low drafted people in this tourney, I would say, more than last tourney even. So this optimal team would actually score incredibly high. It would score 189 points, which is so far above anyone else. And yeah, that would have the O score of 13. The next highest would be, we'll talk about this team later. But the highest agreement with the optimal scores is a tie between people like Ashley, Bruno, Tyrrox, Carl, Mochi, Silent Chad. These people all agreed with, about 4 of the optimal picks. Some of these people picked Tyrrox, it looks like. A lot of these people picked Pingu, who's obviously the optimal pick in this case. A lot of them picked Stevedog as well, who was optimal. So yeah, these are the most kind of optimal picks, or the people who picked the most optimal picks, not necessarily the most optimal overall. Yeah, of these, I would say Bruno did really well. Obviously, said that. If we look at the other direction, we'll be fine. So yeah, of course, Jimmy once again not picking the optimal picks at all, but neither was Paz. So yeah, sorry for Paz, Woe, and Acro. Didn't pick any of the optimal picks there. Whoops. Yeah, unfortunate. Well, moving on. I did something else, which I find kind of interesting, which is I redrafted the whole tourney based on what would happen if the people voted on every single draft pick. So basically, I took the fantasy drafts and I sorted each round based on what percentage of people picked each pick. And then I assumed that that would be the order that they would be drafted in if it was the people choosing each time. And I rescored the whole draft. And it would go from looking like this to looking like this. Now, a lot has changed, obviously. The people had really interesting opinions on who was good, who was not good this time. Uh, I think that the most interesting thing is my team actually kind of turns out the same. Or it's pretty close, right? We got Source still on it. Tempest still on it. You know, I'm an Ant. John Scoutman. Yeah, still on the team. King Brucey still on the team. Payne Sama still on the team. So yeah, I guess if the people had done it, the people's cap would have done basically the same thing. These other teams though are pretty crazy. They're pretty different, and they include a lot of things that you might never see. Like for example, is there any real way that Manu would let Anjanu get away from him? No, this would not happen. So yeah, these would be really interesting teams, and I wanted to see which of these teams would actually win, which of these teams would lose if the people were picking. So just as an experiment, I figured that out, and it turns out Pingu would have won if the people had chosen for everyone. His team would have gotten 113 points. Not bad. Not bad at all. Now, the unfortunately losing team would have been Manu. Yeah, rip Manu. Didn't do so well in that respect. Also down in the bottom would be me. Yeah, unfortunately, the people would have picked not so well for the people's cap if they were picking for everyone. But, that's how it goes. That's how the will of the people goes sometimes. It's okay. But yeah, this would be the order with, Pingu Dice Artsy top 3 if the people had picked the whole draft. Yeah. Now I also created this interesting kind of plot here, and this blue distribution here shows basically a distribution of randomly picked fantasy teams. So I did a lot of kind of RNG teams, and I put them in a distribution, and then I compared that to how the people chose and what that distribution looks like. And you can see the people definitely did, significantly better than random overall. There were some real shitter teams back here. Might have been some joke teams, but overall the distribution does look better than the random distribution would have been. So yeah, good job everyone. You're better than RNGesus at fantasy drafting. That's good to see, right? I'm glad people are not just like, rolling the dice. I mean, it is rolling the dice, but I'm glad to see that this is not like a total lottery. Like there is skill to it, and people are showing their skill. That's what I'll say.